Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, February 21st. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 190 days, the game against Michigan in 281 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at GratefulGriddleOH.com. So today we have tons of news on this show. Is it new news? It's official now, so that's a thing. It's the news that I think a lot of people have been waiting for and wondering, when are they going to announce this stuff? Ohio State has made it official. 2 new assistant coaches on the staff, 5 coaches returning, but in slightly different roles or with some slightly different titles. Going to be breaking that all down today with our buddy Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, let's start with the defense, and let's start with new defensive coordinator Matt Patricia.
Yeah, a decision that made Buckeye fans happy and thrilled to have Matt Patricia. Of course, no, the hire was met with and why. And the thing is, because of his history in the NFL, everybody knows his name. Also know that things did not go well in Detroit. And so that's kind of what he's remembered for. And I'll try to remind people he was defensive coordinator for 2 Super Bowls in New England. Clearly a smart rocket scientist, legit dude. And somebody that when you have his pedigree, I think that qualifies you to be a college defensive coordinator, somebody who's well known, has put some good defenses out there and will have an opportunity to do the same thing at Ohio State.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm always interested when you have NFL guys come down to the college game who maybe have not coached in the college game in a while. Chip Kelly was one thing where he had spent some time in the NFL, but then came back, or Tim Walton. Tim Walton had to adjust a little bit from the NFL game to the college game, and just in terms of the amount of time you get with guys and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that'll be an interesting adjustment for Matt Patricia, and one of the many intriguing storylines this spring around the Buckeyes. The other new face is Tyler Bowen. He's going to be in charge of the offensive line, a really restructured offensive line coaching staff. We did a live show on Wednesday night, talking about 3 of the new, not the top 10 assistants, but 3 of the other kind of sub-assistants to the offensive line. It's going to be a very, very different look in that offensive line room. But Tyler Bowen, the concern with him coming in was, he hasn't done that much with the offensive line. Don't worry. They have a lot of guys to help him with that offensive line.
Yeah, last time he coached the offensive line was, I believe, 2017. One thing I try to tell people is that if you're an assistant coach and you're a good assistant coach, you can pretty much coach any position. And it's just about making sure the technique is there and that you're watching it, correcting it, and getting all of those little things and helping the players be the best version of themselves. And if you look at over the course of a coach's career, how many different positions they've coached, you'll see that they touch a lot of different positions. And he's a guy who was Virginia Tech's quarterbacks coach last year, but has coached tight ends at Penn State and has done different things. But he's going to have a wealth of help around him and the hires that we talked about on the live show. So he's known as a recruiter and known as a developer of players. And now we got to see could see both of those things on the offensive line for Ohio State, which would be maybe the one thing that they've been missing in Ryan Day's time at Ohio State is both the recruiting and the development. Sometimes they get one, sometimes they get the other. Here's an opportunity to get both.
One position where there has not been any concern about either the recruiting or the development is at the wide receiver position, and that's why Brian Hartline, he has himself a new job title. He has gone from wide receivers coach to coaching the wide receivers, but also the new offensive coordinator. And this is a spot where I know, again, everyone has some concerns, and he didn't get to call plays the last time he was named the offensive coordinator. You still have Ryan Day in the building. You still have plenty of other great offensive minds in the building. And at this point, whatever you need to do to keep Brian Hartline in that building and keep that wide receiver portal, recruiting, developing, all that kind of stuff rolling, whatever you got to do, man, that sounds great.
Yeah, I like how you describe it as the one area, the one position where there's no concern. And now it's let's turn this into a huge concern, because now Brian Hartline is the offensive coordinator again and calling plays, which he's never done full time in a game over the course of a season. So let's just put some drama in there. But Ryan Day has said a couple times now he expects him to be the best offensive coordinator in the country. And I'm with you. Like, this is the natural progression of things. If this is what Brian Hartline wants, eventually you're going to have to give it to him, or else somebody else will. And I guarantee you, whoever that school would have been, their coaches, their fan base would have been thrilled. So this is if you're an Ohio State fan, you're like, I'm nervous about this. Well, I mean, welcome to life in the big city. This is every other fan base would be thrilled to have this. So if you are not thrilled, then you have gotten to the point where Brian Hartline has spoiled you, and now maybe now he can spoil you as an offensive coordinator and calling plays and doing all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, he's had another couple of years with Ryan Day and with Chip Kelly this last year to sort of continue to grow as a coordinator of offense, play caller, in waiting, basically. So, yeah, and there were people who were concerned about, well, he hasn't called plays before. There were also people concerned about, well, what happens is Chris Henry going to sign with Ohio State in 2026? And the answer to that is Brian Hartline around? If so, you got to feel pretty good about your chances there. You don't get to be worried about both. You got to pick one, whichever one you're more worried about. You can worry about that. The other one, these two things are probably, you got to balance those two things. And, as I said, I think Brian Hartline has had a couple of years to continue to grow and develop and learn in terms of running a full offense. So I think you're going to see probably a more prepared Brian Hartline now than you did a couple of years ago. We'll see how that all goes this spring. Another assistant coach on the offensive side of the ball getting a nice bump and probably a nice raise to go with it. Billy Fessler. That's a name that I don't know. He's been around the program a bunch. He's been around other programs in the state of Ohio and the Big Ten. But it's, I don't know that that's a name that most Ohio State fans would necessarily be able to, conjure a face and know exactly what he does. But man, the people who have worked with him in the past, whether it's Chip Kelly or Will Howard or Ryan Day, they all speak incredibly highly of Billy Fessler, who is the new quarterbacks coach.
Yeah, and you look at the quarterbacks that he's worked with at Ohio State, because he was at Ohio State in 2020 and 2021 and got to work with Justin Fields and CJ Stroud, was with the quarterbacks last year at Ohio State and helped with Will Howard, a guy that is trusted by Joe Moorhead, who brought him to Akron to be his offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, a guy that a lot of people respect as an offensive guy. And then Chip Kelly, of course, did the same thing. Brought him to be his quarterbacks coach last year before heading over to Ohio State, and then brought him with him to Ohio State. And the thing is that I think what makes me feel okay about this is, he's not the most experienced guy, but he's experienced coaching Ryan Day's quarterback. And that's something that nobody else can really say out there that that Ryan Day was looking to hire. So he knows what Ryan Day wants his quarterbacks to do and how they're supposed to be coached. So that gives Ryan Day, I think, a lot of relief and confidence that the development will continue. And this is a lot of trust that he's putting in to Billy Fessler when you're talking about Julian Sayin, Lincoln Keenholz, Tavian St. Clair. This is not Will Howard coming in with 1,000 pass attempts in his career. These are guys that are still like very able to be forged and shaped. And so this is a big responsibility, but this is Ryan Day. He's the quarterback's coach. He's not going to entrust this to somebody that isn't going to do exactly what he's looking for.
Well, and Ryan Day also has a very good sense for what good quarterback coaching and development looks like, and he's seen it up close. And this is someone that Chip Kelly, who obviously Ryan Day had a tight, close, long-term relationship with, he's someone who really liked and trusted Billy Fessler as well, brought him along from UCLA with him when he came over to Ohio State last year. So yeah, this was one that felt like at some point a job is going to open on the staff, and Billy Fessler is going to get it, and that has now happened. Someone else who has been sort of climbing the ladder at Ohio State is Keenan Bailey, who came in as a very, very low-level assistant, and he just continues to excel at everything that he does. He's someone you hear great stuff about in terms of recruiting. You've seen great, great development. That was probably one of the best tight end rooms Ohio State's had in a long time. They have one of their deepest tight ends rooms in a long time this year. Keenan Bailey's still going to be in charge of that, but he also is now the co-offensive coordinator.
Yeah, co-offensive coordinator, which was, I think, it was a surprise to most, because I figured like Keenan Bailey is, like, you always hear about him, but this was a very nice bump for him. And nice thing. No, it's like he's earned this. Ryan Day talks candidly and openly about how much he respects and likes Keenan Bailey, called him the hardest working coach on the staff at the championship celebration. is somebody that was here a year before Ryan Day even got here. So this is his 10th year now at Ohio State, and has done everything from probably making copies to now, like, he's the co-offensive coordinator of a Ryan Day Ohio State offense. So that's a pretty good climb for somebody who has put in all kinds of hours to make it happen.
Yeah, and before he came to Ohio State, he was a recruiting assistant at Notre Dame, that is not the glamorous end of the business by any means, but has now moved himself up to co-offensive coordinator in the span of basically a decade. That's, if you wanted to buy stock in someone and say 10 years from now, this guy's probably going to be running a fairly substantial college football program, Keenan Bailey would not be a bad guess on that front. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, nice bump for Tim Walton. He's the secondary and cornerbacks coach. Now he's the co-defensive coordinator as well, continuing to coach the secondary, continuing to coach the cornerbacks. This is maybe the only position outside of wide receiver where you can look and just go, the recruiting is pretty much flawless. The development has been fantastic. The track record's there. The depth is there. Tim Walton has been a phenomenal addition to the Ohio State coaching staff. When he came from the NFL, there was a lot of questions about, boy, he's been in the NFL a long time, and yeah, sure, he can coach there. How is that going to translate to the college level? How is that going to translate to recruiting? Man, oh man, that has been a home run hire. And now get a nice bump to co-DC, and probably a nice salary bump as well. He's one of those guys, a lot like Brian Hartline. The longer you keep him in the building, the better off your program is.
For sure. And you also do need the front end, back end situation going on in terms of running the defense. So he'll be part of that with Matt Patricia. And I'm with you. Like, it's keeping him was big, because any school that would have gotten him would be thrilled and would be dancing in the streets. And you talk about the recruiting that Tim Walton does. Just imagine if Uncle Phil with Oregon wasn't able to promise shoe deals and write checks, how the kind of recruiting that he would be doing. And it's already impressive, but he's a guy that everybody has the utmost respect for, and he's been able to continue to put production out there and talented secondaries. And again, a guy that this defense needed to have back, and they've got him.
And one more guy they needed to get back in the secondary was safeties coach Matt Guerreri. He has a little promotion as well. He's promoted to pass game coordinator. He and Walton and Matt Patricia, you mentioned earlier, sort of the front end, back end portion of that. Guerrieri is someone who worked a bunch with Jim Knowles over the years at various stops. So he's probably going to provide, he and Walton will provide some continuity in terms of, boy, this worked real well on the back end last year. Marry that with potentially some new looks up front with Patricia. This is another one where all you have to do is listen to Ryan Day talk about Matt Guerreri, and you knew Matt Guerreri is probably going to get a little bit of a bump and a little bit of a salary bump to make sure he sticks around Columbus, because Ryan Day is very high on him as well.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who give Guerreri the credit for the coverages that they were doing last year, especially the second half of the season, and implementing some different things and things that worked. And to have him back, as you said, the continuity with the new stuff that Matt Patricia may bring in, whatever that may be, but you do have some grounding with Guerreri and Walton in there to keep things familiar for the secondary. And yeah, another young guy that is one of the future head coaches on this staff. I think it's pretty safe to say that. And Ryan Day obviously speaks highly of him, and a lot of other people do as well. So this is a good get. This is a guy that, we had talked about, is he the defensive coordinator, and is somebody else going to be the co-defensive coordinator? It's like, he'll be a defensive coordinator before too long, and then of course he'll just continue to keep climbing the way I see it.
Yeah, a lot of bright futures, a lot of very highly sought after coaches on that staff. Those are all good signs. Like, you don't want to have the coaching staff that no one is trying to pursue, no one's trying to take your assistants. That has not been a problem for Ohio State. Ohio State's last two coordinators are making north of $9 million between them in the upcoming season. So yeah, you end up hiring good coaches. Some of them get hired away, and then you get to find new coaches and keep new coaches, find good new coaches. But Ryan Day certainly seems to have done that. 2 new faces, 5 familiar faces in slightly different roles this year. But there you go, 7 different roles, different coaches on the Ohio State assistant coaching staff for this year. So all of those new faces and new roles, those are just going to be some of the things we're following this spring. We cover spring ball A lot of new faces on the field as well. Some interesting transfers. A lot of intriguing true freshmen coming in. And guys, a lot of guys who've been around for a little while getting a chance to take on a bigger role. This is going to be a really fun spring. We hope you can spend it with us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. We got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there as well to make you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.